When it comes to trying to help businesses leverage things like AI, what sort of things are you learning or realizing in doing some of that?
So, in the category of what I'll call AI search, which is really about making sure that your company is visible when somebody asks a question in the LLMs. Let's talk about that category for a second, because you can use AI for a whole bunch of other things. But in that category, we have a practice we call generative engine optimization, which essentially is like SEO, but for the LLMs. And so the idea of GEO is that people are now searching, or they're really not searching, they're asking questions in the LLMs. So before we went to Google and searched, right? And that optimization for SEO was around keywords. Generally, people search with using keywords or very, very short phrases. With the LLMs, people are asking detailed questions, long form queries, having detailed, long conversations in ChatGPT, in Google Gemini, and those kinds of tools, right? For example, so I'm looking for solar energy for a solution for my house, right? So in the old days, I might have searched for solar providers, Boston, right? And so, and I get maybe a list of providers, and I make a phone call and ask them some questions, and I get a proposal, right? Today, what I would do, differently, right? So I start off by having a detailed conversation, and I'm like, well, what are your energy needs? How much solar wattage you need? Do you want battery backup? Where are you located? Because so I had like an hour long interaction, right? With now I'm super knowledgeable about solar and what the capabilities were. And at the end of that conversation with ChatGPT, in this case, I say, well, what are the providers in my area that could give me a quote? And it gives me three, right? That's cool. And I think that it's omniscient and it knows the best three providers. Who else? Who am I going to call? I'm going to call those three, right? What if you're the fourth one? What if you're the sixth one? What if you're the 10th one? You don't get called at all. So the idea with GEO is helping that fourth, fifth, sixth company get visible with the LLMs so they become one of the providers that are recommended. The analogy I use these days is it's like you've been given a brand new sales rep. Doesn't cost you anything. Sales rep, he or she's out there, and you say to that sales rep, hey, just go to my website, learn everything you can, and represent me, and you'll be fine, right? You would never do that. You're going to give that sales rep some training and some knowledge and a briefing. Here's some case studies. Here's examples. Here's why we're better. Here's some cheat sheets. You're going to give them a whole sales training course before you unleash them on the world. But we've kind of unleashed ChatGPT and Google Gemini as our sales reps out in the world without any training. So our GEO practice does a couple things. One, it helps clients understand where they are today. So what's your current status? What are the questions people in your market are asking? And do you show up in the LLMs? And are there links back to you at all, right? So are you even visible? It's kind of a visibility test. And then we come up with what we call a content map that says, well, if these are the questions, what are all the questions your buyers are asking for all phases of the buying cycle, for all personas, for all of your products? What are all the questions they're asking? And do you have content that answers those questions? This is like the training guide for LLMs. Do you have that? If you don't have that, we will help you write it. So it's basically writing all this content. And then the third part we call business authority. What are all the places that the LLMs go to see if you're a trustworthy source? The review sites, the directory sites, the news sites, all of those. And so we evaluate those. And we do audits in all those categories. And then we help our clients build that out. So we'll do the analysis, figure out what the questions are, write the content, audit the external sites, and then build out content for the external sites to help them train really the LLMs to represent them better so they show up, so they get traction. I mean, today there's about 800 million people that use just ChatGPT on a monthly basis. Do you think you want to show up when they're asking about products and services? Absolutely. If you don't, you're missing a massive opportunity. That's kind of a long answer, sorry, but that's really what we're doing in this area.
No, it's fantastic. And I have such a naive and frankly ignorant perspective on this. So don't be offended by the question, because I think there is some real nuance that you're talking about. But it sounds very similar to SEO in the sense of that could very well be effective for an SEO strategy. How might it different, or what are some of the nuances that you find are different from a traditional SEO strategy?
The biggest difference is that SEO is focused on keywords. So SEO always starts with a keyword analysis, keyword visibility, and you're tracking keyword visibility. In the LLMs, it's much more about queries or questions. So, what are all the questions your buyers are asking? Now, the questions contain keywords, right? But it's a whole different strategy. So, you're not really writing generic blog articles and contain a keyword or the keywords in the meta tags so that you show up on that keyword. You're trying to really answer the question and train the LLMs. I have the real answer to that question, right? And so that content becomes a source for the LLMs to answer. So my brother has a problem with trees with this certain blight in his neighborhood, right? It's like a little worm that's eating all the trees and kind of killing trees. I forget the name of the tree. So he searches in ChatGPT about, what are solutions to tree blight with this particular species and this worm, and he's having this conversation. And then at the end, he's like, well, what are landscapers or tree experts in my area that could help me with this? And one comes up and they've written a detailed article that answers this question. And that's why they showed up, right? So we're trying to answer questions and have that, have that level of detailed authority. So it takes a lot deeper content strategy. And then that content also needs to be reflected with these external sources to make sure you're a source of trust.